All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Opposite of Cheating podcast. This time I'm here with the Marc Watkins, who you probably know the name. He's the Assistant Director of Academic Innovation at the University of Mississippi. He's the author of Rhetorica, which is a newsletter on Substack, not quite weekly, sometimes weekly, depends on what's going on. And he's colleague of two previous guests of the show, Josh Eiler and Emily Pitts Donahoe. So welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Tricia. I appreciate it. I'm
We're,
happy to
we're
be here.
we're getting a University of Mississippi trifecta here.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to represent too. My position is now CETL adjacent, so I work with Emily and Josh. I'm actually someone in the humanities working in technology, which is sort of hilarious to kind of think about as well too.
Hey, you know what? I think humanities is going to be the savior, the answer to our human problem right now. So I'm excited that you're involved in tech. I'm excited that you're thinking and talking about these things. I do believe more humanities professors and scholars and thinkers need to get involved in the conversation. So thanks for leading the charge on that. So why don't you tell people a little bit more then about what you do and the context in which you do it, and what kind of things are you teaching, the size of your classes, all that kind of stuff.
So yeah, I'm in a weird semi-administrative teaching role. I'm still a lecturer of writing and rhetoric. I have been for the last 15 years.
Okay.
Instead of teaching five classes now, I'm down to two, thankfully. I teach a course in digital media studies right now, which is hybrid. And I also teach another hybrid course called Writing 381, which is
Okay.
AI in writing. And
Cool.
so they usually have about 21 to 10 students, depending on the class size. So
Okay.
it's a small writing-based class. Um,
At the senior level,
but
I'm assuming that second one.
yeah, junior, senior levels
Yeah.
too. And it's opened up beyond, it's pretty interdisciplinary. So it's not just our writing majors,
Okay.
it's also students from like public policy, philosophy,
Mm,
computer data science. We get a few of those students as well too. So it's really interesting mix. And we take a kind of a critical approach about AI and how it's affecting the world. And we also play with some of the tools in ways that are structured and give them some chances to really explore some different AI techniques.
hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's really a lot of fun, a lot of talking. I do tell my students, because I do get a little bit negative at the end, that every time we end the class, it's like, okay, now your assignment is to go out and hug a puppy, find a puppy or a kitten, and feel good
Yeah.
about the world. Because we go really deep into it, and they're honest about it. They're getting ready to graduate, they're ready to go in the world, and we were talking about these news articles about AI, the job apocalypse coming
It's
for white collar
scary.
work. Yeah, it's very scary.
I am very glad I am not a person under 21 right now,
I
honestly.
am too. I am too. And I can't even imagine just the fear of going out there and being told that you have to learn how to use the technology that may be the reason why you don't have a job in the first place. So like this is the sort of weird juxtaposed messages we're getting from
Yeah.
industry, upskill yourself, but do so in a way that helps you get ready to go in an industry where they're increasingly saying there's no position here for you to
Yeah.
because it's already been automated away.
One of my least favorite hype phrases from the Kool-Aid servers is the um, AI won't replace you. AI will replace people who don't use AI.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept from 2023, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the wonderful part of it all too. Look, I never imagined we would be here 3 years from now at the launch of ChatGPT. I
Mm.
could not have fathomed it. I mean, I remember first doing a presentation to chairs that were interested in this, and I was a little before ChatGPT came out. It was in, I think, October of 2022, so maybe like a
Okay.
month. And we were dealing with GPT-3. We were
Yeah.
talking about it. We were saying, things are going to change. And I looked over at my colleague, Bob Cummings, who's also in our writing program as well, too. And he was presenting along with me. And he's like, maybe this would be a good idea for a paper one day at a conference. And, I think now this is like talk, conference, workshop number 200 and whatever odd
Right.
number it has been. It's just gotten really crazy.
Yeah.
And it's changed quickly. And a lot of our faculty, which is the other part of my job,
I was gonna say, yeah.
struggle with this. And like I sit down and work with them, whether they're in a writing discipline, a humanities discipline, or if they're in the sciences, and they're just trying to work through about how they can also, start to just navigate what this has done to their students' learning and also their assessments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's such a crazy world. And before we delve into that a bit more, I do have to ask you our common second question that I just love, and to remind viewers, I gave my citation on this a long time ago, but had been listening to a podcast about grief, and they asked like, what's your first memory of grief? And I thought, what an amazing question. So I have taken that and turned it into, what is your first memory of encountering this idea of academic integrity?
Oh, great question. I was in the fourth grade and I had committed plagiarism, not knowing what plagiarism was. I was assigned to write a poem for Halloween, which is a little bit thematic right now this time of the year
Yes, we are
too.
recording it October
Eh,
31st.
Yeah, and I stole the idea from Ghostbusters 2 about some sort of weird phrase that is said there too. Is like death is but a door, time is but a window. I'll be back, and I wrote it. And my fourth grade teacher, Miss Freed, noticed it, and she'd also watched the movie, and she said, this came from a movie. This wasn't your own ideas. And so I was introduced to the idea of academic integrity at
Wow.
that age
In
because I'd
grade
done something.
four.
And so, yeah, it was it was a good conversation. She was very disappointed in me because, I'd done something too that was outside of it. But, that has stuck with me throughout these years too, when we talk about what it means to use your own mind, your own
Hmm.
thinking, your own words. Um, and I think it's a powerful moment that you can have. And I think a lot of people come to that sort of by accident, not by intention. I don't ever remember even having an official workshop or anything else, even in high school, about academic integrity.
Wow.
It really goes beyond it too. And just is framed as just cheating, just wrong.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no nuance into it. There's no delving into the different complexities of it.
And the why
Um,
of it.
yeah,
Why
yeah,
it's
yeah.
important. So, but so grade four, what are we, 10, 11 in no,
Yeah, I've been 10 or 11
10.
years old. Yeah.
And so your teacher did explain to you like why she wanted to hear your poem and your ideas?
She explained why cheating was wrong and you didn't do the
Okay.
assignment. So now you have to do the assignment again in front of me where I hear your own ideas. And I
Okay.
composed a really crappy poem because of it. Right?
But it
Like it
was your
wasn't,
crappy
but
poem.
it was my crappy poem. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you
It goes
still
back
have
to this.
it?
Yeah.
I still have
I,
poetry that I wrote as a kid.
my mom still has a box of it all in there too. It's probably filled with dust and mildew and
Oh
moss and
my
all this other
goodness.
stuff. But probably I still do. And it goes back to this idea too of your formative memories of these things, and they can
Yeah.
really shape and really inform how you do things.
I think the younger the kids are. So we have these amazing, adorable
Mhm.
courage stickers. And a colleague of mine, this was many years ago now, took one home and gave it to her son, I think who was 3 at the time. And of course, he thought it was adorable. And she asked him, I can't remember which value she chose, but it was something like, why is trust important? And she filmed it and sent it to me. And he had the most eloquent 3-year-old explanation of like, well, because if you do bad things or you lie, people won't want to be around you. They won't want to be your friend and so on and so forth. And I just thought, wow, that would be a great campaign to just have a whole bunch of 4-year-olds or
Yeah,
5-year-olds telling adults why these values matter because we
right.
feel them as kids, right? Like I've got them all on my shirt. We
Yeah.
feel what unfairness is like. We feel like what dishonesty is like, and we don't like it.
Yeah, exactly, too. And we sometimes forget it because our lives get so complicated. We get so many different signals from different things,
Yeah.
and we kind of lose track of purpose and value in these types of situations.
Yeah. And we're so scared to talk about values, right? S-
Yeah.
So that's where I wanted to take our conversation. I am finding, and people might have heard me say this before, but I'm finding that our conversation of AI in education is unfortunately going the way of the world, and they're landing in very extremes, right? You've got I call them the Kool-Aid servers who are saying this is amazing, this is great. Education was broken anyways. We'll use AI to fix it, which as a humanist technologist, you would have heard this with the Google Classroom, you know, um, trend back in the 2010s. And then at the other extreme, we have the absolutely not resist. AI companies were built. on a lack of ethics, and their products are built on a lack of ethics, and it's antithetical to education, and so absolutely not. And in the middle is really hard to sit. And I feel like you are one of those people who sit in the middle. And you're in Rhetorica, you talk both about like this is bad. Like this is really bad for learning, this is really bad for thinking, this is really bad for student voice. And faculty, here's how you learn about AI and students, and you're teaching a class to teach students about AI. So how do you sit there? How do you sit in that nuanced sea when you've got the tide trying to pull you in either direction?
Uncomfortably. I mean, no, it is weird, and it does feel like there is a horrible polarization that is matching just the sort of nature of online discourse. Part of it's algorithms, right? It's how we're being driven into
Yeah,
these different arguments through digital spaces. And I think being able to realize that and acknowledge it and talk about it is important. Um, I understand my students are being sold this technology in ways that are just absolutely gross and disgusting. I've wrote about Perplexity's
yeah,
direct appeal, which was one of the first times we've seen one of these major AI companies do a direct appeal for cheating. It's always been a little tongue-in-cheek before in the
yeah,
past. We had OpenAI saying, free trial of ChatGPT in May to help you through
yes,
finals, a little wink, wink here. But
yeah,
having these direct influencers selling through social media to students using Perplexity's Comet browser to cheat
yeah,
really did cross a line. And so, I hate this. I don't want to use the technology because of that. But at the same time, I realize that a lot of students are going to be in situations too where they feel like they need to in some cases. Um, and so how I basically am trying to frame this is through discernment. Like,
yeah,
when is this going to be appropriate to use? When is it appropriate to say no? And how can I recognize that? And how can I articulate this to maintain my own values, my own agency in this
yeah,
process?
yeah.
Um,
I wasn't, I posted on LinkedIn about that perplexity ads. I was like, I'm not sure whether to feel like great that at least they're being fully transparent and they're not trying to pretend they're doing, I mean, they gave it away free for EDU addresses. So we knew, we knew what was going on, right?
right, right.
But I was like, I'm not sure whether to be like happy about the transparency or mortified by their callousness, and their hate for learning. I don't know what it is, but it was disappointing to me because I actually kind of expected something a bit better, from a smaller company. They're quite a bit smaller than the other
I
giants in
did
the
too.
field.
And, I've actually enjoyed using the Perplexity research tool. I would
Mhm.
actually show it to my students. And I
Yeah,
thought at that time that this was like a great alternative because at that moment,
more
Google was going
narrow
to the,
tool.
yeah, more narrow tool. You could do a lot of parallel reading to
Yeah.
actually go back through and check the sources. So, it's incredibly disheartening to see this happen. And they're just doing it for market share. They're trying to
Oh, I
go after
know.
Google's browser with their own version. And, Google's synonymous with search. So therefore, they're going to pull no punches to do it. They're going to burn down anything that they can to get as many people on their
Yeah.
actual browser. Um, so I understand that. I acknowledge that it's happening too, but I also will say that, this is not something that we should stand for.
Yeah.
And these companies are coming to us for agreements. In some cases, they're asking us to buy actual licenses for our
Yeah.
students.
So,
That's the
yeah.
other thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're constantly living in an ethical dilemma in many ways, right? We know that gasoline vehicles are bad for climate, and yet some of us don't have a choice. We have to use a gasoline vehicle either because we can't afford to buy a new, electric vehicle, or there's not enough charging stations in the area we live, or, whatever. There's lots of valid reasons why people, and of course, some people would argue maybe the electric vehicles aren't good either because of the waste from the batteries that's going to occur in 20 or 30 years. And so we're always having to live in this kind of like, moral compromise.
Mhm.
And so it is true that when I use these tools, and I do use these tools, that I am inflicting some, say, environmental, consequence. And it's also true that when I watch Netflix, giving some environmental consequence. I think it's just important that we, as to your point, which I think I hear you saying with the word discernment, that we just open students' minds and teach them all of this and help them think more critically, right? Like this is not about AI literacy. This is just about critical thinking, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's about critical thinking. And I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed by that. They think they have to understand the technology. You don't.
Yeah.
One of the things we've been doing here to help faculty that's discipline agnostic, you can take
Yeah.
it anywhere else, is we're trying to build these short 15-minute activities you can bring in the classroom.
Nice.
And so one of it is, about AI and the environmental impact. Has some critical readings that are both about the world and also localized in Mississippi context.
Mm.
And we also use John Appilado's game, What Uses More, which he designed this wonderful
Which is
interface where you could actually go in and start typing in what uses more, 3 seconds of AI video versus an hour of Netflix. And then you can get them to start thinking critically about this.
yep.
And so we think that we're going to need for faculty to have a whole section of these for both critical AI literacy. And I would define that as not using AI tools. I define critical AI literacy of understanding how the technology works and
Yeah.
functions and its impact in society. And I think we're going to need a whole list of those. I do think we're also going to need quite a few ones that are about 15 minutes that also are about AI fluency, about how to use this technology responsibly, my sort of obligations are as a user
Mm.
of this and a consumer of it, that are short to go in there too. And, faculty are then going to be able to hopefully have the freedom and the capacity to pick and choose which one of those they want to talk
Uh,
about with their students. But I think a mix is probably where we need to be because we need to be
yeah.
talking about a little bit of both.
Okay, so you mentioned this AI fluency thing. I have to admit, I do get a little bit tired of all these terms we invent and throw around.
Right.
I
Yeah.
do I do worry that we complicate things. So before we get to AI fluency, stick with AI literacy. We talk about digital literacy, information literacy,
Yep.
AI literacy. And to me, correct me if I'm wrong, they're all just about critical thinking. And I'm wondering why we complicate things, and doesn't that add to faculty and maybe even students, but let's stick with faculty for a second, their feeling of overload. Oh, first now they want me to talk about this. And it's the same with academic integrity because all of the practices that David and I talk about in the book are good for inclusion. They're good for closing equity gaps. They're good for learning. They're good for integrity. But we package these things in ways that make faculty think, now I got to do this. Now I got to do this. And doesn't
Right.
that just add to their feeling of overwhelmingness?
It does, and it's unfortunate. And my biggest fear is that the reason we aren't seeing a lot of faculty move to this is that they feel paralyzed by the
Yeah.
entire concept of it. And we are talking about this big issue of theoretically going back down to the brass tacks of recreating how we actually assess learning in this
Yes.
situation. You have that framework to a faculty member, and they say, well, thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation and giving me this sandwich. If it's like a lunch and learn, I'll
Yep.
be leaving now, right? It's too much.
It's too much.
So I do think you have a valid point there. I think it's hard to then start talking about these things outside of that. It does all go back to critical thinking. Critical thinking
Yeah.
is the foundation for a college education. It's the foundation for, in my mind, a democracy.
It's that durable
Um,
human skill, right?
yeah. It's durable, it's human. I think digital interfaces, digital tools really complicate that. And, critical AI literacy is just a form of digital literacy.
Yeah.
And we frankly screwed up 25 years ago when we tried to teach this about the internet,
Yeah.
and we never really got it off the ground.
Yeah.
And so now I think the other big issue which is a valid criticism, is that we're just creating a new term, a new literacy that we're not going to be able to teach people because
Yeah.
it's going to go over their head. Yeah.
And so now so what goes over my head is this AI fluency thing. So that came
Right.
later. I, and you said it was about how they can use it responsibly. AI fluency. So tell me what that means to you.
For to me, being fluent in something too, just to be in this sort of instance, again, I'm using the sort of framework that the Ohio State University did. That's the biggest one that's out there right now is their AI fluency
Yeah.
initiative. When you actually start looking at it too, it's not necessarily about using the tools.
Okay.
It's about giving people the frameworks they need to sort of navigate all this, including
Okay.
the actual critical part of it as well too.
Okay.
But yeah, to me, that's just trying to make sure that people understand that there's more to this than just sitting down and putting a prompt into a chatbot. You have to understand there's obligations that come along with this. You have to understand too that there are issues you're going to encounter from bias and other things as
Yeah.
well. So it is confusing. I do think that we need to have a better conversation about this. And everyone has their own little framework as well too. They have their own little acronyms. I've got my own too, and like everyone's doing this. And in the end, it does become almost meaningless because everyone's just talking around the same problem, which is that we have to confront this technology and ourselves and our own
Yes.
beliefs about it, and before we can actually make decisions going forward.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you were going to so my take is that we need to be teaching humans how to be better humans or to be human, and to bring added value to a machine dominated world, right? So no one's going to want to hire you if you can just operate these machines because everybody's going to be able to operate these machines. Some will do it better than others, but
Right.
everybody's going to be able we don't we don't sit down and teach students Word and Excel and all of that. Like eventually they just figure it out. But the durable human skills like critical thinking and communication and interpersonal and empathy and emotional intelligence, all those things, I think is where we should be landing. Would you put AI literacy and or AI fluency in that category of durable human skills at this point, or is it kind of like durable human skills and then this stuff over here?
I think what makes me really hesitant about making a clear distinction about this is we're starting to see this multimodal AI stuff be able to mimic
Yeah.
human voices, be able to turn on your screen to watch you and have an emotional response. Like, I mean, for me, this is the holy crap moment where this goes beyond just text generation prediction. I mean, it's still a tokenization process behind there too. We don't make this magical. It's not. It's
No,
still prediction.
it's a
There
good
are
faker.
yeah, there are human beings that are labeling every utterance that come out of these actual voice AIs. They're doing the same thing with the visual part,
Yep.
but it's starting to break that sort of fourth wall of just saying, here's an assignment that I would type into a word processor
Yeah.
versus here's now a thing that's talking with me that I'm also going to talk back to, and I might like, start disclosing some really personal stuff to a machine that's a private company.
Yeah.
So I do think we have to talk about this. I think we have to frame it as something
Yeah.
that is for them or their sake, uh, understanding that this is going to be a thing that's going to impact the way that they do communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Okay, so there's two different ways I want to take this conversation at this point. Um, Maybe I'll let you choose. So,
oh,
yeah.
choose your own
So,
adventure. Okay.
okay, yeah, choose your own adventure. So, part of me wants to go down the assessment route because you mentioned that earlier that faculty, have to assess learning and they want to figure out how do I do that? Um, where there's integrity, right? Where I'm actually
Right.
assessing learning and not the student's ability to hit enter on a prompt. So, and that's more aligned with our book. The second route, though, is what you were just talking about with this multimodal and this interaction, and our kids are going to be much more so than us, I think, are going to be interacting with machines as they might interact with another human. Um, and I am worried. Does your university provide LLM tools to your students?
We provide, let's see, Microsoft Copilot has been approved.
Yeah.
That came through the existing
Right.
contract with Microsoft. We have Gemini, but we've not activated it yet.
Okay.
That's in a closed pilot for faculty only. And on top of that, I mean, my God, we've got Blackboard that's the AI design assistant too. We're a
Right.
Box University, so it's activated too.
Okay.
We haven't bought anything. It's just arrived via update.
Okay. So some institutions, right, are many institutions are providing these tools to students, and we know already that there are cheating's only one of our problems, right? Mental
Right.
health of our students is a huge problem already because of social media. And frankly, there have been self-harm and suicides, some would say, as a result of interacting with these machines. And I'm really quite worried, and I don't think we're talking about this enough, that as we provide these tools to students, we are now responsible also for more than what happens beyond academics and how they use them. So there you go. There's your two choices. You can talk you can talk about assessment or you can talk about um, The whole student and the mental health thing.
Well, I think we can probably maybe do a little bit of both. Let's start
Okay.
with the mental health thing. It's shocking how quickly this is happening. And, I think there's some reports from different institutions that are tracking it. About a quarter of students, I think as some have said, as high as
Yeah.
30% are using AI for companionship and therapy.
And many of them
Uh,
start by using
yeah.
it for homework,
For homework, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and then you,
It
like you
leads
said,
into
they
it. Yeah.
start telling it things, and oh, and by the way, I also have this problem with my friend or my boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, and when you have multimodal AI, you're not just typing it in, you're then talking with it and you're hearing a voice that's designed through this process of sycophancy to be incredibly validating, to never challenge you in some cases.
And be
And
very human.
yeah, very
Oh,
human.
that
Yeah.
sounds horrible. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Or even grosser, flirtatious, and these types of things too on top
yeah.
of it. So, these are incredibly antisocial behaviors, in my opinion, that we'd have to be prepared to think about. And you're right, absolutely. If a university makes the choice to buy one of these services, they're going to have to make sure that they are secure because they do then become, in some ways, liable for it.
I
Um,
think so.
at the same time, we also have to realize that we now have the phenomenon of everyone walking in the classroom with a smartphone and they have their own little design assistant in their pocket. Um, and so, how do we want them working with information in our classroom to be FERPA, HIPAA compliant?
Mm,
If they are talking to one of these things, or especially faculty start doing this as a part of it too, we are
mm,
starting to see that as well. You're not talking to a person, you're talking to a machine and you're talking to a private company. Where's that data going? Who has
hmm.
access to it? It's a
Students
wicked
wearing meta
problem. Yeah.
glasses into the
Oh
room.
yeah, meta glasses. There's this weird other cheating thing I ran across on social media. It's about the size of a razor tip, and it's a microphone that goes inside of your ear, and you can't see it. You actually can't get it out unless you use a magnet. So it sits on your eardrum. I mean, this is all
That
horrible in so
sounds
many different ways.
that
Yeah,
sounds totally safe.
yeah, yeah. So I'm sure that's not going to jack up the sound. You've got something that's coming from, a third party country that is not designed to be safe, and that students are going to use it to cheat because they will either have a friend through contract cheating or something as
Yeah,
their service, or they'll have an AI tool that is then talking them through a problem. So, the assessment thing is just out of control. On top of it, with the mental health aspect,
yeah.
I do think we need to talk to people about it, though. Like, if you don't have conversations with students about this too, it's going to be the next wave of addiction we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a cycle for humanity, right? Like
Yeah.
there's always something we're addicted to. Sometimes it's multiple things, but this is not new for us. And I wish we had figured out the solution before now, but that is what it is. It's part of our ongoing growth and evolution as humans. So we have to talk about that. I think that's true, and I'm glad to hear you agree and that that maybe more of us can do that. It's a depressing part of the talk, but someone's got to go there. It's better than
Yeah,
being the
someone does.
ostrich.
Someone does, yeah.
And so that's a concern. Um, our job is technically our core job is not the mental health of our students, right? The core job
Yeah.
is facilitating and certifying learning. And so what are you telling faculty about how to do assessments? Now, keeping in mind, right, that most of us, when we got our PhDs, were not taught how to teach, and we were not taught how to design valid assessments in the first place. And so, and so, what advice are you giving faculty? What's your go-to strategy?
I hand out antacids before a conversation and then like
Oh,
have
I should
everyone
start
think
doing
of
that. That's a
start
great
doing it.
idea.
Yeah. I mean, assessment's broken now that AI's here. It probably wasn't in great shape beforehand.
Namer.
We need to go back down to understanding the reason why we're assessing learning, why
Mm,
the degree is valuable in the first place.
hmm.
I am really worried about these news from the job markets that they are automating away a lot of white collar positions.
Entry level in
Again,
particular.
entry level. Yeah, entry level for our students.
Yep.
If they get to the point too where they don't see college as having a pathway to a career, they're going to start asking, why am I going here? Why am I taking out debt? Why am I agreeing to have a certificate and also go into these values of
Hmm.
using my own thinking, my own mind for it?
Hmm.
So it's a really, really wicked problem. It
Yeah.
doesn't have one simple solution. But I do
Yeah.
tell my faculty too to start thinking about having these conversations with your students early on. Be
Hmm.
transparent about this early, not just having a syllabus statement, having open dialogue, open discussion, and starting to look at your assignment design too and start thinking about carrying that into your actual directions. Because you would not, you know this already more than anything else. I think some of our audience might think, because they are probably faculty, oh, I give wonderful, clear instructions to your students. You might ask them and have a faculty member too to think about too, because we allow so many things to be assumed that we
Yes.
think students understand. You're
Yes.
going to have to clearly articulate the value of everything that you
The
do, whether
why.
it's, yeah, the why, whether that's a one-off assignment or if you're trying to scaffold learning throughout this
Yeah.
process. And then you're going to have to start thinking about putting in some roadblocks, whether
Yeah.
that's proctored actual examinations, or if you're going to do some level of, I think Tim Fawns in Australia is doing the studio model too, where he's walking through and observing their learning in the
Mm.
classroom.
Hmm.
Again, that might work if you've got a 20 student session. It's not going to work if you've got a 250 session for business school
Yeah.
students.
Yeah.
You're going to have to lean into technology in some ways, and you're going to have to make some compromises, you know?
Well, or speaking of Australia, we go the Australia route where we say we're not going to do secure assessments in every single class. We're going to do
Right.
them at milestones and benchmarks. And then people say, well, then they're high stakes. But I say not if you let students fail and retry, right? If they're mastery
Right.
based, if they get to fail forward, and then I think it's okay. And if you give them practice at it, and then they're not as high stakes. And in the world, there's high stakes. So we've got to train our
Sure.
students to face high stakes situations and survive them and have resiliency, another durable human skill. So let me throw at you what I think the another solution is, both to deal with the mental health problem or the socialization problem as people spend more and more time in their bedrooms with their machines. And to deal with the assessment problem. I do think uh, definitely online asynchronous unsupervised assessments are dead, and we should not rely on them at all. I also am concerned about the continued push for online learning for convenience and access, um, because of the social isolation problem. And I think there might be more innovative solutions. When you think about online learning, it came out of the distance ed movement from the 20th century, where we were content deliverers. Students
Mhm.
had to come to us for knowledge and information because the internet didn't exist. And so I remember getting, when I was an undergrad, I took one distance ed course. And in the summer, when I was at home, and I got the cassette tapes of the professor's lectures, and I got the readings, and I had to do my homework, and I had to mail it back to them. And that was the only way for me to get access to that content.
Right.
Now, God knows I can't remember what course that was for, or I think it was a communication course, actually.
Oh,
But anyways, my I guess my point is, I think the solution is, and I know this is more inconvenient, and I know we've got to wrestle with the inconvenience of it, but being a human's kind of inconvenient. And being around other people is kind of inconvenient, and it's kind of annoying, and it's full of friction. We have to embrace our human to human environment, right? So students learn however you want. I don't care if you learn from AI. Here's the stuff that I think you should learn from. Here's the structure I think that might help you learn. Read this week, read that this week, that kind of thing. But you do you, boo. Read whatever, learn however you want, and then you come into class and we're going to solve problems together. And
Mhm.
if you haven't learned, that's going to show up pretty darn quickly in that flipped engaged classroom model.
I think that's one really good approach, and
Yeah.
I support that here too, especially because we're a really big residential university.
Yes. Us
Um,
too.
I think where this becomes a problem is when you deal with all the adult learners in community colleges, and you deal with
Yeah.
all these other folks too that just do not have the time or capacity to do that. The debate there becomes really horrific because we're dealing with very low actual completion rates at community colleges to begin with.
Anyways, yeah.
Um, But I think that drive to be embodied is the whole idea. Trying
Yeah.
to find some embodied experiences in disembodied spaces. We're trying some weird stuff, and I'm searching for some ways to do it too. I'm having some of my online students this next semester. We're going to pilot it. They're going to actually have a handwritten journal, and they're going to take a photo of it, and they're going to upload it. And I'm going to use the OCR capacities of the foundation models too to actually transcribe the handwriting.
Yeah.
It's not going to be completely handwriting. It's not going to go that far. That's
Yeah.
crazy. But they're going to have some opportunities where they're going to be without a screen in an online class, and they're still going to be expected to show their thinking in some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So we're trying some wild things. I don't know if it's going to work. A lot of the stuff is
Yeah.
going to fail, but I want to at least try that before we go back to it because I think you're right. Having a human-based contact is important. It's meaningful. It's also incredibly expensive
It's
for a
very
lot of these. Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
But if you think about, I'm not saying I'm sure you're probably aware of the alpha schools.
Oh yeah. 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 Alpha Academy.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm not 100% fan, and yet I am really interested in the overall approach, which says learn the content with a machine for a couple hours. You're kids, though. You shouldn't be sitting in a seat and staring at a teacher for 6 hours a day. And then you're going to go do stuff for the rest of the day, and you're going to
Right.
learn through being a human and interacting with the world. And I think we can learn something for that. Maybe it's more expensive, but I bet you there's money around in what we're doing now that could be redistributed. To me, it's a fundamental shift. And we keep building class or lecture halls for 600 people. And I'm not saying every class has to be like that. Maybe it's the third and fourth year classes. I don't know. But I do think that we could do it more often than we're currently doing. And
Mhm.
it wouldn't add a whole bunch to the bottom line at the beginning. Like if we scaffolded it in, we're like this many classes, now it's this many classes. But really, our students are paying a lot of money to be here, and if they're just going to be sitting behind a machine and never interacting with other people, that's
We have the phenomenon here. We're a strong residential college, university, but we have a growing online program. About 90% of our online students are residential on our campus. And so we've talked about this going forward, and we've made a decision kind of in the department too that we want to be going to hybrid models. And that I think is going to be our future. Both for students want the convenience of being able to do this, but we also want that FaceTime with them. We want at
yeah,
least 50% in-person FaceTime. I think that it's meaningful. I think it
yeah,
matters. I think the Alpha Academy thing is taking off.
yeah,
I want to see how that works in a poor, struggling
yeah.
district
You're right,
before we go
right.
there. Right. Yeah, because that's the big thing. A lot of these students within there too, their parents are paying, I think it was $57,000 a year. They're coming from families of means to
Yeah.
do this.
But it doesn't
So,
probably have
yeah.
to cost that much. I mean, that's
Well,
just
I know it doesn't have to cost that much, but I'm just
right.
wondering if the
I
sort
think
of
it could I think,
resources that they have outside of that
yeah.
is also what's getting them that academic success.
My guess is that they are not paying their non-teacher adults in the room more than teachers get paid. And so, yeah, I question the price tag on that. But Mark, we'll end there. Thank you so much. This was a great discussion. We will include things in the show notes, like your website and the link to Rhetorica, and definitely the What Uses More. Site for the energy use. I've used that.
That's a great game. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
John Applies is a great game. Thank you so much, Tricia. This has
Thank
been wonderful. I
you.
do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much.